It was night in the lonesome October of my most immemorial year. Greetings, Poe fans. The Poe-tastic 2 are back. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith.
And welcome back to our third episode of Season 2.
With our Halloween special just for you.
Yes. And we love the Halloween special. There's so much fun around this time of year.
And it fits so well with Poe and his horror and his psyche and his wonderful tragedy of life.
Exactly. And I'm not sure about everyone out there, but I know here in Tennessee, our leaves this year are more vibrant and colorful than they've been in many years.
Oh, yeah. This year we actually have a fall of the year for the first time in a very long time. And I was joking to one of my other friends the other day. I was like, oh, we have winter. Because we went from having normal fall weather about 60 degrees to being in 20 degrees. And I was like, oh, and then we'll go back to summer. Because then we'll go up to 90 degrees.
Oh, Lord.
It is the wonderful world of Tennessee.
All right, Jeanie, keep mashing it up there.
Winter, fall, we're all good.
Yeah, and that'll be swall.
Yeah, swall.
Swall.
Yeah. Summer and fall all over again.
Exactly. And in case you missed it, we had our Poe Unplugged this past Thursday on October 27th, which was
the National Black Cat Day.
Yes. And so Poe, my black cat, made a very small appearance at the very beginning. He was not having too much of being recognized, but that's okay. But
he's a cat. What do you expect?
Yeah. We had a great discussion over Poe's black cat, and we just felt like it was very fitting for this time of year. And we also talked about superstitions of black cats.
Yes, and it was a very fitting story because it's one of the most horrific stories, because I am an animal lover. I'm a cat person through
Me
and through.
too. Oh, yeah.
And that story has always been the worst one of all that I cannot stand to read. But I do love it because of the story.
Yes, and the irony at the end.
The irony, the cat gets its revenge, as cats want to do.
Yes.
And so it very much was a great discussion, a great topic of story, very Poe-esque for this time of year.
Absolutely. And I'm sure Stephen King read The Black Cat for some
Pet
little
Cemetery.
Inspiration for Pet Cemetery.
Oh, had to be, because
and
that's
that was
why
some
I can't
definite revenge.
That's why I've only read Pet Cemetery and seen the movie once.
Oh, yes.
That's enough for me.
Yes, I've seen both versions, the new version as well as the old.
I saw the old, and that was good enough for me.
Oh, yeah. Yes. But kind of talking about tragedies, especially within the black cat.
Yes, the tragedy of the missing wife.
Yes.
And hunting for the missing wife and trying to find her burial.
Exactly. And we're going to tie that to a little reality rather than fiction of Virginia Poe and how she was buried more than once.
Yeah. And more than one different way that we could, we all think that back in those days you got put in a pine box and you got put 6 feet under.
Exactly. And we're left there for forevermore.
Yeah, forevermore to be earthworm food.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And conqueror worm is very appropriate to mention right there.
Exactly. Very much.
But when she passed away, the Poes were living in Fordham in New York, which is now the Bronx area.
Yep.
Their cottage was there, and with her death due to tuberculosis, consumption, however you would like to say it, they buried her in the cemetery in Fordham because that's where she passed away. And so she stayed there for many, many years. 1883, this basically one of Poe's earliest biographers, his name was William Fearing Gill, which is very Poe-esque.
Exactly.
The Fearing. He kind of realized, she's not buried with Poe. And so he happened, now here's the thing, with our research, apparently his stories have kind of variations. So,
which happens most well with that time of period in history.
absolutely.
You can find many different versions, but you kind of have to trace it to see which ones kind of match the best.
Yes. And so, we're not really sure what truth was stretched in this story or not, but we're going to go with telling you what we found. But anyway, so he happened to go to the cemetery, or the burial ground, I should say, back in the day, in 1883, when the sexton of the cemetery, his name was Dennis Valentine, literally had her bones in his shovel, is what we found.
Yeah, that was the story of how he said it in his writings himself, is he found the shovel of bones of poor Virginia.
Exactly.
And he rescued them.
It's like she was a damsel in distress after death.
Yes, only with her bones.
Yes, and that was lots of alliteration there, which I love.
Yeah, I know. It works very well with Poe.
Yes, I can't help it. So anyway, he rescued her from being thrown out because the cemetery was actually being razed for other buildings and things. And so he and Gil and the sexton, Mr. Valentine, they put what was left of her bones in a small box. There was one story that said it was in a small cigar box. So you can only imagine what was, we really don't know technically what was left.
I'm like, then where was her head? Because her head or her skull would not fit in a cigar box.
No, not at all. Not
even a forebone.
No.
Or a leg bone would fit in a cigar box. Maybe a finger.
Yes.
Metatarsal or something.
Yeah. Fibula, tibula. I don't know about that.
No, she didn't have any. She was no bones.
Definitely
apparently.
not a femur.
No femurs for her.
Yes, because I think, isn't the femur the longest?
Yep.
Yes.
Femur is the longest bone in the body.
Hey, I learned something from biology.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as we digress,
Once more.
Her bones, what was left, was placed in a box, and he went back to his home, and the bones stayed with him in his house for 2 years.
Wasn't it at one point it said that he kept it under his bed?
Yes, that was another story.
That's creepy.
Yes, very creepy.
This dude is like, woo, original grave robber on the high.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Exactly. I mean, rattling bones, they're supposed to be kept in the skeleton in the closet, people, not under your bed.
Exactly.
Just saying.
And so if Poe, had lived, that would have been a great tale. Well, and Poe would never have let that happen.
No, Poe would never let her be just a box of bones.
No, and under another man's bed or house or whatever.
No, he would definitely have a sepulcher by the sea for her, for all to see. Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. All right. And so after this 2-year mark, they finally were able, because Maria Clemm had already been moved to the grave. Well, actually, her grave was where they moved Poe's grave in 1875, because he was exhumed and reburied. Yep. And at Westminster Hall, this from the back to the front, Clemm was already there. And so on January 19th, 1885, which was the 76th anniversary of Poe's birth, she was interred again. And to the left of Poe.
Okay.
And so there are many stories that we kind of looked at that, is it really her bones or not? Because DNA was not a thing in 1885.
No, I mean, because there could be just a random bones of a woman just laying there next to Poe.
Yes. And then...
Can you imagine what's going on in the afterlife? Virginia's like giving him hell.
Yes.
Who is this strange woman that's buried next to you?
Exactly. And, and they put Maria Clemm with Poe and Virginia as well, because she was Virginia's mother, because she wanted to be buried with them because they were very close family. And so if it's not Virginia, and when they moved Poe's bones from the back to the front, if it really, we found one little story that said, is it really Poe's body, his bones that were moved? she could be there
Just
with
random
two completely different people. And hopefully that's not the case. I mean,
True. Yeah. Because that would be kind of horrible to live in your afterlife in your grave with two random strangers. You have no idea who they are.
Exactly.
Poor Beetlejuice is like, it could be Beetlejuice next there, Who knows?
Exactly. But this is a great tale that could be written.
Yeah, it's a true mystery of the Halloween time of year.
Yes.
Because when All Hallows Eve, we go back to the story of it's the Day of the Dead rising that had been the bad people.
Right.
But then you have November 1st being All Saints Day, is that one day that you have to visit with the relatives that you love that had passed on within the past year. So can you imagine if they just popped up on November the 1st and they're like, who are you?
Yes. Yeah.
Where's my family?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but we want to believe that everyone buried beneath that beautiful monument are all related in death together.
Yeah. Too bad that I was telling Carmen that if we could have the DNA samples today, unfortunately we wouldn't have anything to match to, but they could probably find maybe a relative of Virginia's or Edgar's that they could trace back and maybe figure out if there was any DNA. Any DNA
yes.
left in the bones that they could trace back and figure out, is it truly those are the bones?
Absolutely. And with them being related, that would be easier to do with the familial DNA, the mitochondrial and all that.
That would be just a little creepy though. But I mean, that's the time period. It was okay
period.
for, the royalty did it, so why not?
Yes, absolutely. And yes, well,
but
we
digress.
Won't go there. Yes,
we digress.
We won't digress much further than
that
once or twice removed.
You never know.
Exactly. So we wanted to share that because that is not something I think that's well known in all of the Poe lore, and just it's a very creepy story, especially for this time of year.
Yeah, and the traveling bones of poor Virginia Poe, you never know.
Yes, that could be what the tale is called, the traveling bones
of Virginia Poe. Yes.
Yes, that's what was that young adult story, the traveling
pants.
Yes.
Yeah, I having taught young adult literature during that time that it came out is like, I'm so sick of traveling pants.
Yes, the sisterhood of the traveling pants. Yes.
And what was really sad is I actually found a pair of blue jeans in the bathroom where one of the cheerleaders had changed clothes, and it was just randomly laying on the floor. And I'm like,
Lord.
How can you not realize you're walking around without pants?
Yes. Well, hopefully they put on different pants. And,
well, I figured they were cheerleaders, but
Yeah. So the tale could be called the family heritage of the traveling bones.
That would be a mouthful, but
yes. But
it fits better than the Virginia hood of the traveling bones.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, from our historical point of view, with all of that, we just wanted to share that story with you. That life is definitely sometimes stranger than fiction.
Yeah, and the mystery fits very well with Halloween and the mystery of the where are they buried?
Yes. And so with that, we, just like last year, want to do a couple of readings.
Yep.
And Jeanie is going to start us off with El Dorado. And I think she was going to share why she chose that poem for tonight's.
Yeah, El Dorado to me has always struck a chord because I love the story of Don Quixote. That's always been one of my favorite stories about the fighting of the windmills of, the mind, the psyche, and which we've always discussed as Edgar Allan Poe's. That's one of the things that draws him in is he always wants to mess with your mind.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And he is very much probably having his own struggles during the times that he's writing. And then El Dorado, of course, has the historical aspect of being sought after. I think even in the Bible was one of the earliest times it started talking about the search for the city of gold.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and I think it's where they first started exploration out too in Spanish when they started trying to find the city of gold, and that's how Latin America came about with the Portuguese and the Spanish and all that. So
Right.
all the history parts of it kind of drew me in, and then the idea of Don Quixote, and to me, the City of Gold also goes back to the leprechauns.
Yes,
The finding the pot of the gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yes.
So it just hit a lot of resonance for me from a historical point of view, and my own thing of that unattainable.
Yes.
It's that one that we're always striving to try to reach, but very, very few ever actually reach their pot of gold.
Yes.
And the metaphor of, is the pot of gold actually a figurative, or is it a literal translation for people?
Absolutely. And I think Poe had his own El Dorado that he was searching for to, be accepted as, a strong literary creator. And and he was, but there were people that were trying to keep him down. And so I think it was a constant battle to have that.
Yep.
And be able to make a living from being a writer and a poet.
Oh, yes. An artist is very much the epitome of the reaching of El Dorado.
Yes.
That end of the rainbow type of thing. And in the poem of El Dorado, I just love the thoughts, especially around Halloween, where we all dress up as different characters. And the knights and, the Knights of the Round Table and the Templar always love to bring in that part of it too. So this one always strikes a chord to me.
Yes.
And so that's why I wanted to choose it to do for, I was like, Halloween, this is a perfect, because it's like trying to reach that end.
Yes.
That perfect thing. So please sit back and enjoy as we reach El Dorado.
All right.
Gaily bedight, a gallant knight in sunshine and in shadow had journeyed long, singing a song in search of El Dorado. But he grew old, this knight so bold, and o'er his heart a shadow fell as he found no spot of ground that looked like El Dorado. And as his strength failed him at length, he met a pilgrim shadow. "Shadow," said he, "where can it be, this land of El Dorado?" "O'er the mountains of the moon, down the valley of the shadow. Ride, boldly ride," the shade replied, "if you seek for El Dorado."
Nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
I mean, it just, you reach a shadow. So the ghosts of coming out, and we've all had that moment of where, somebody point me in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I chose Dreamland, and actually kind of Jeannie and I actually kind of chose this together because there is a mention of El Dorado in this particular poem that was written in 1844, and it has spooky element. It's just like the perfect, it's a perfect one for us to use for Halloween. The only poem that Poe wrote really kind of in the vein of the spooky time of the year really was Ulalume because he talks about it being October.
Yeah.
And so here we are with Dreamland. By a route obscure and lonely, haunted by ill angels only, where an eidolon named Night on a black throne reigns upright. I have reached these lands but newly, from an ultimate dim Thule, from a wild weird clime that lieth sublime, out of space, out of time. Bottomless vales and boundless floods, and chasms and caves and titan woods, with forms that no man can discover, for the tears that drip all over. Mountains toppling evermore into seas without a shore. Seas that restlessly aspire, surging unto skies of fire. Lakes that endlessly outspread, their lone waters lone and dead. Their still waters still and chilly, with the snows of the lolling lily. By the lakes that thus outspread, their lone waters lone and dead. Their sad waters sad and chilly, with the snows of the lolling lily. By the mountains near the river, murmuring lowly, murmuring ever. By the gray woods by the swamp, where the toad and the newt encamp. By the dismal tarns and pools, where dwell the ghouls. By each spot the most unholy, in each nook most melancholy. There the traveler meets, aghast, sheeted memories of the past, shrouded forms that start and sigh as they pass the wanderer by. White-robed forms of friends long given in agony to the earth and heaven. For the heart whose woes are legion, 'tis a peaceful, soothing region. For the spirit that walks in shadow, it is an El Dorado. But the traveler traveling through it dare not openly view it. Never its mysteries are exposed to the weak human eye unclosed. So wills its king who hath forbid the uplifting of the fringed lid. And thus the sad soul that here passes beholds it but through darkened glasses. Be a route obscure and lonely, haunted by ill angels only, where an eidolon named Night on a black throne reigns upright. I have wandered home but newly from this ultimate dim Thule.
Very, very good.
Thank you.
And it's so perfect because one of the things that Carmen and I were discussing when we were talking about the poems is El Dorado is about the physical seeking out of the city of gold, whereas in Dreamland, it's where Edgar's talking about, hey, most of those things you seek in dreams and the things you get in return aren't what they seem.
Exactly.
So,
and thus a dreamland.
Exactly. Is where the only thing you will find your El Dorado.
Absolutely. All right. Well, our Halloween special was a little bit shorter this evening. Mm-hmm. We just wanted to add a few tidbits here and there because this is kind of, our special type episodes where we share extra information.
Yeah, it's like our little mini blogs or vlogs,
exactly,
or pods, or okay, I got to stop.
Yes, with with our extra information.
Yeah, our extras.
And so we definitely want to invite you to join us on Poe Unplugged this next month. We're going to be adding this to our website probably later this weekend.
Right.
We're hoping to do this on November 29th. It's a Tuesday evening. It will be at 7 p.m. Central Time. And we'll have on our tab Poe Unplugged on our website the 6 degrees of Poe. 6degreesofpoe.com. We have a Poe Unplugged tab, and you just click on the link to register, and we will send you a Zoom link the day of. And we were talking about doing the Telltale Heart for that episode.
Absolutely. I mean, even though we all think of Telltale Heart being like a Halloween type story,
yes.
But if you think about it, this time of year, I was talking to someone else, a doctor. He was telling me that this is the time of the seasonal depression.
Yes.
This is where everybody's going through their plights of having to face, without, within, their own psyche, their own depression, their own emotions. Yes. And so it doesn't matter whether it be Halloween, but Halloween's kind of like the kickoff.
Yes.
And so Telltale Heart is very much got that.
Yes.
That whole thing about it.
We're not going to say yet, but we are working on having some special guests on Poe Unplugged, and we'll reveal that later once we have everything worked out.
Yes, just pay attention on the Poe Unplugged on our 6 Degrees of EdgarAllanPoe.com.
And
or 6 Degrees of Poe.
And all of our social media.
We have Facebook, which is 6 Degrees of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes.
Twitter, We have YouTube, Poe Unplugged. You
Yes.
can find our videos and recordings there of where our Zoom meetings and some special places that Carmen has visited and
Yes.
shared some history from the Edgar Allan Poe
Connections.
places.
Yes, and we just put out one where I went this summer in South Dakota. So check that little. It's like a 5-minute video. Check that one out on Poe Unplugged.
Right. And you can find us all those places. And then our podcast, we have many different platforms now other
Yes.
than just Spotify. You can find us on, I think, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and Google. And
yes.
there's so many of them
There's
there.
a lot.
Sirius XM.
Yes, and if there is a podcast platform that you also listen to that is not
favorite,
yes, and we're not on it, let us know, and we'll try to make that happen.
Yeah, we would love to expand our audience even more.
Yes, and so our next episode, going back to our 6
Regular
degrees,
schedule.
yes,
Regular schedule.
is going to be on science, and the title is called, Jeanie came up with this, and I think it's brilliant, The Poe is in the Details. And Jeanie, give us a little hint about what that's going to be about.
Well, the whole cliche of the devils and the details kind of popped in my head when I thought about it. But it's all about the forensics and how he introduces the science of things and how forensics itself has become so important.
Yes.
When it comes to not only mysteries, but crimes, but to everyday life, like we were talking about the DNA. There are crimes that from 30 years ago that are being solved because of the forensic science of DNA.
Yes, and it's only getting better and better.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still not perfect. Nothing is perfect.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But it is just astronomical how much forensics is playing a part in everyday lives. And even with people doing their own personal DNA, I've done the genetics
Me too.
myself and found out a few things that I never knew. And my family probably never even knew. And
Right.
probably never want to know. But
Keep those skeletons in the box, Jeanie.
yeah, in the box under the bed, dug up and maybe buried with Edgar Allan Poe
There you
before
go.
it's over with.
Yes.
But yeah, it's going to be all about how Poe has got his own forensics and how he brought forensics into the time period.
Yes.
And moved it into what we have now.
Yes. It's only grown
Because-
astronomically from
the
there.
literature. Because if you think about it, it was fiction. There was some, because we can trace fingerprints back to the early Sumerian times.
Don't give too much away for our next
I know.
episode.
So, you have the little bits, but it
Right.
wasn't until Poe and science and that whole Reformation period
yes.
of the
And
Enlightenment.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's why it's going to be Poe in the details.
Yes. The Poe is in the details.
Exactly.
So, for Halloween, we wish you a wonderful Halloween evening, safe, and trick-or-treating night.
Yes, and don't let the ghouls get ya.
That's right. All right.
And
we
so
are Poe out.
For we knew not the month was October, and we marked not the night of the year. Night of all nights in the year.